We're here with Jay Ferruggia.
I think there's a huge misconception that people on stuff should do way more volume. They can contract way harder. Some of the guys that are on a lot of stuff actually do better with lowering their volume because they're able to put so much into every single set. Same thing with juice. Like someone with great genetics could do 200 milligrams a week of test and be humongous. Someone who has shit genetics, generally they're a shit responder to juice. So they would need 600 to get what you're getting out of 200. All that's kind of counterintuitive.
Strength and conditioning specialist and fitness expert.
Like if my brother does sets of 6 to 8, nothing happens. He does sets of 12 to 20, he decides, higher reps is going to cause more fatigue and more soreness. I got to do a 5 RM on every exercise. That's fatiguing because mentally I don't want to do that. So there's always like an asterisk next to everything. He was just like, every day texting me, like, tell me I want to do extra drop sets and do an extra hour cardio. I'm like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. Don't do it. Like, just trust the process. If you have really good genetics, you're just going to grow more. Oh, if you have shit genetics, you should do really low volume because your recovery is not great. I could argue that it's the opposite. Maybe you have shit genetics, you need to do a lot more work. Everyone's got to squat. Everyone's got to do this. Everyone's got to do that. And guys will be like, squats break my back. You're like, you're a just we got to go squat.
Do you happen to have experience training people that have been on steroids, whether or not they told you or not?
I would say...
Before starting this podcast, I just wanted to say that ideating steroids for a full show is not widely accepted because it discounts the real work, which is the backbone of this sport. And unfortunately spreads that an unsafe chemical solution is all you need for results. Both of these are antithetical to society's understanding of the sport. And while there will always be some that claim that PEDs are all you need, I would like to deliver an honest message of what is required for achieving top performance, as well as the dangers associated with this route. I received this comment from a user named Nightscarens. But just as a rock climber, the athletes undergoing this path in the sport are willing to put their life on the line for their passion. Just the danger between the two sports is different. Luckily, we do have safety nets in the sport, such as organ imaging and regular blood work. But that doesn't change the high risk one must accept in taking on this competitive lifestyle. Even obviously, though it wasn't a great childhood, it's nice to have like a low point to compare it to because now it's easier to practice gratitude every day.
Yeah.
Right. I think
do you have siblings?
I don't.
Okay.
I think honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why it would have been it would have been like a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Less miserable of an experience.
Right.
With siblings.
Totally. Yeah.
Because I think the main point in the childhood that I experienced that was so difficult for me was like just the loneliness.
Yeah.
Like the isolation, feeling like.
Did you go to school where you were the only Asian kid in your class?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, there was like still Asians around, I guess. Like, I think we had like one family friend or two family friends. I wasn't too close to them, and one of them even moved away to like Houston when I was like maybe, I don't know, like before I was 10. Yeah. So maybe like 8 years old, 6 years old, I don't know. But basically, just being fat and then being Asian is not like, it doesn't set you up for the most popularity in class.
Yeah.
So.
And so you're actually a professional bodybuilder?
Yeah, I'm professional. Nice. I did my competition. I got my pro card in men's physique though. It wasn't like open bodybuilding or anything. And it's like way back in the day, and it was like freshly like less than a year or something, or about maybe a year after I started gear for the first time too. It's a weird space. Yeah. I'm sure you've like dealt with people on gear, taking gear, right? Or maybe even lying about it and stuff throughout your, because you've been in this space for like 30 years now, right? Yeah. That's a long ass time.
Yeah. Wait, so how long ago did you get your pro card?
2019.
Okay.
End of 2019. So I haven't competed since then, but right now I think I'm about to start my prep for my pro debut in like a week.
Nice.
So
nice. Where's that going to be?
Cross the fingers. I chose the San Diego Pro. Which is like August 10th.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, going back home, at least someplace that's comfortable. Right. Yeah. Hoping like that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So,
where are your parents?
Right now, they're in Texas, in College Station.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were in Arkansas, but family moved back to College Station because my dad got offered to to take on a new higher role in Texas A&M where he used to work. So.
Okay. Yeah. Now, when you go back there, do you have like do you get triggered from childhood? Like, oh, fuck, like I'm going to be all stressed out and shit?
When I go back there, the last time I went there, which was for Christmas, I just remember feeling just like very out of place. I think that's all. Yeah. Okay. I don't think I felt anything triggered really. There weren't very many things that we passed by that were like a huge, like I didn't pass by any of my middle schools or anything, but it's just like such like a barren looking wasteland.
Yeah.
Everybody is white. We went to like this church where everyone was like above the age of 60 and 70 and just white. And I was like there Asian, like with my piercings and stuff and trying to look nice with a button down. And I'm like, this is not where I belong.
Yeah. So would you, like, if you were going to go there now, like on the drive to LAX, would you be like, have a pit in your stomach or anything, or you'd be totally fine?
If I was going there now?
Yeah.
I think I'd be okay. But it would just be kind of like a, damn, I'm going to have to go there for a bit and just sit it out and try to be there for the sake of family.
And how's your relationship with your parents?
Man, you're going deep into this is my interview.
Sorry, it's my default.
My relationship with my dad has gotten a lot better.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot to go into, but for the first time, maybe like a year or 2 years ago, he said he was proud of me, which was honestly, if I felt like I had like 10% with him, I felt like I gained like 80-90% from that. It's a weird feeling.
Sure.
It's a weird feeling. But now because of that also kind of changed my entire perspective on how I feel about my family. Like almost like the hopelessness of like not thinking that I could achieve their, I guess, either admiration or their like support.
Yeah.
Has completely changed. So now it's like every move I make is like, I do want to make them proud. Yeah. This does matter to me, you know? Wow. Which obviously then maybe if it's just subconscious will make a difference in like what kind of decisions I make. So prior to that kind of maybe perspective shift, right, that you had, was it like, fuck everyone, I don't give a fuck what they care? It was like I wanted to show them wrong. Like, even though they like they don't approve of what I'm doing right now, like bodybuilding wasn't like, you know what I mean? They wanted me to be like a doctor and an engineer. Sure. Right. Yeah. So it was just like just to prove them wrong through success. Exactly. Yeah. But now it's like also like through a lot of other like paths, a lot of other things that I do, even when it comes down to like my morals and my ethics. Yeah. It's like, how do I want to continue to be a good gentleman and a good son and a great representation for them? Yeah. So yeah. Nice. Thanks. That's awesome. Anyways, I want to do this intro anyways, but hey guys, so we're on this podcast with Jay Ferruggia. Is that how you say it? Ferruggia. Okay. God, I'm so bad. You don't really realize how bad you are with names until you have to say and roll call, like going on a podcast and saying guest names. Right. But anyways, guys, we're here with Jay Ferruggia, and he is a strength and conditioning specialist and fitness expert, and a speaker and author, and has worked with Hollywood stars and athletes in the NFL, NCAA, NHL, and MLB, and has worked in men's health, muscle and fitness, Huffington Post, LiveStrong, Muscle and Fitness, Nurse, Shape, and ESPN or CBS, and many more. So honestly, that's a lot of stuff. Yeah, that's a huge resume. Something that I actually really found interesting about this is like, I haven't had my podcasts have been kind of interesting. There's a lot of variance in the kind of guests that I have on. And obviously in most of them, we talk about fitness and bodybuilding. But I think I normally either have like doctors that are very based in science, or I have like a younger guest, someone maybe that is like an athlete. So they basically have like a lot of accounts of their own experiences. But I've had some coaches. I've had quite a few coaches here and there. A lot of them do have a lot of experience and knowledge, especially when it comes to actual hardcore competing in bodybuilding. That also includes like things such as like PEDs and substances people don't want to talk about. And I believe my audience does consist of people that are, I'd say, more experienced in fitness and training. They're probably at least in an intermediate level. Yeah. I don't think really any of them are beginners. Okay. But something I noticed about you, and I listened to some of the podcasts you've had, is how neat it is that you have this account of just so much anecdotal evidence of like from working with all these clients over the years. And a lot of it matches up with, I think, the literature nowadays and like the new credible research studies, but not necessarily all of it does. Right. Yeah. And some of these things you can't really even figure out from like research studies. So that's like something I found really admirable and of interest, and kind of just like deep diving into it. But the first question that kind of crossed my mind is like, in the last 30 years, basically, in the last 30 years of like you coaching and training and whatever with all these clients and athletes, what are like some of the top things you learned that you couldn't figure out through research papers or like coming up literature?
I mean, so I always say that research proves nothing. We prove it kind of in the trenches, right? And then we look to the studies to figure out why it worked, right? I mean, 30 years ago, there wasn't studies like there were today. In the 90s, you would just, the best way to learn was I was on the gym floor coaching people 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day. And then you get together with your colleagues, guys like Joe DeFranco or, whoever back in the day, Dave Tate, and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Friends of mine who were NFL or NCAA strength coaches, you'd have dinner and be like, here's what I'm doing. Oh shit, I'm doing the same thing. What kind of results are you getting? How's that working? And that's how you'd exchange. I still think that's the best way to learn anything, right? Is like experience and just exchanging ideas with people who are doing it, right? Like if you and I went to train, there's probably some things I would show you, like, oh fuck, my shoulders feel better doing that. And then I might look at you and be like, oh, I never thought of that. Like I learned something from you. Like I think you learn from everybody. Like everybody you meet, you're learning, whether it's fitness or whatever, you're learning something from everyone. You should be a student all the time. So yeah, I mean, some of the things it's hard to pinpoint. It's just more like, man, everyone's an individual and you got to kind of figure, like if you don't enjoy it, first of all, that's not going to work. So let's say studies show that, and I'm just making shit up, right? Like studies show, training a body part twice a week is better than training a body part once a week, which there is a lot of studies showing that, right? But it's like, if you hate doing that, it's not going to work. It's going to suck, right? Like I don't like for years I trained upper lower. So I'd train each body part twice a week. I hate that now. Like I would want to kill myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like doing full body, I would want to jump off a building,
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. So like, first of all, there's the enjoyment factor. And then, there's not like we used to always, and I was guilty as I used to write those articles in the 90s, like top 10 exercises. And you'd be like, you got a bench, squat, deadlift, overhead press, you know what I'm saying? But it's like those exercises aren't great for a lot of people. Structurally, they don't fit a lot of people. There are no top 10 best exercises, top 10 best for you, for me, for our structure, for, you know what I mean? For our limb length, for whatever. And if it doesn't feel good, which again, I was ignorant. Like, when I'm training people, I didn't know half the stuff I knew now. When I'm training people in the late 90s, I'm like, everyone's got to squat. Everyone's got to do this. Everyone's got to do that. You know what I mean? And it's like, and guys would be like, squats break my back. I'd be like, you're a pussy. Just fucking, we got to go squat. You know what I mean? So there's so much nuance to it. And I just think like I'm always a minimum effective dose person to start, no matter what it is, no matter what the subject is. But with fitness and training, like, let's say someone comes to me, in the real world, a lot of people come to you for personal training. They're not even doing anything. So one set's better than zero. So why are we going to do 50 sets a week, right? Like, so I always start with minimum effective dose. How many days a week can you commit to? What are you going to enjoy? Kind of just real world stuff that the science guys, and my thing with the science guys is like when they have evidence-based in their little, bio or whatever, but they change their mind every week, every time a new study comes out. It's like, lengthened partials are the best for muscle growth. Oh, just kidding. That's not true anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so if you don't have a base of being in the gym for years, not only by yourself, because then it's just N1, right? Like, but with training a lot of other people, you would change your mind every time a new study comes out, where it's like, if you've trained people for 5, 10, 20 years, 30 years, like I have, you could take everything with a grain of salt. It's like, yeah, maybe that makes sense for this person in that situation. If they're this age and they sleep 8 hours a day and they eat 5,000 calories, but maybe it doesn't work for the other person. So it's just like, I don't know if I'm specifically answering your question. I'm kind of off on a tangent, but I think you just got to, take into account the individual and everything about them, their lifestyle, their genetics, everything.
Yeah, that's exactly what kind of what I was asking. But something going off of that I have noticed, I guess, seems to, like you were saying, make the most difference. I'm curious as to like how often you've seen differences in, say, for example, someone's response to a lower rep range versus like a higher rep range. So this is something that I have, I decided to do, my audience that have watched my last podcast has heard me say this like in the last 5 to 10 podcasts straight now, because I was like so excited after I got it finished. But I got my raw data from 23andMe and I placed it in Prometheus with my friend. So we decided, by doing so, we got like the longest list of like all my genetic predispositions. And the neatest thing about it is like, I feel like there was a huge portion of it that just clicked with me. Like when I saw it, I was like, I knew this. I felt this. And one of them, for example, was that I have impaired muscle performance. So basically, I respond better to type 1, or I have more type 1 fibers.
Okay.
So I respond better to, like, I am more primed for endurance.
Yeah. So like higher reps, more volume.
Higher reps,
stuff.
more volume, longer time under tension. It's right. So, and something that I've noticed too for me, and I heard you say this on the podcast too, about like some people you've noticed have responded to this, is like, if I do 20 reps for legs, I respond better. Yeah. I seem to at least grow more, at least from what I think. Yeah. Obviously there's so many variables, so it's hard, right? Like how many calories are you consuming? How many calories are you expending? Yeah. You know, but overall, over the course of the last 16, 15 years, it seems that if I do higher reps on my legs, then I respond better. And then the pump is off.
To me, that information from you is more valuable than some of the science guys. And I get it, right? Like there's a lot of talk nowadays where, higher reps is going to cause more fatigue, right? And more soreness. And you're going to be stiffer and your joints are going to feel worse. And, you know, we could talk about like calcium ions and things like that. It's just, you know, boring science geek stuff. But like, if you tell me I grow better on 12 to 15 or 15 to 20, I'm like, okay, cool. That's good for me. I don't care what the science shows. You know what I mean? Like I've had a lot of guys that are like that. My brother's like that. Like if my brother does sets of 6 to 8, nothing happens. He does sets of 12 to 20. He's the size of Dorian Yates in like a month. Like it's crazy. You know what I mean? So that's what really matters the most, you know? And then some people say, well, if you just do sets of 5 to 6, one to 2 reps high failure, you're going to have less fatigue and things like that. Not everyone has that though. Like if I know a lot of people who go into the gym and they're like, I got to do a 5 RM on every exercise. That's fatiguing because mentally I don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's always like an asterisk next to everything.
Yeah. I like that account because so many times we don't really put into perspective like how important the mental aspect of it all is.
Yeah.
And that's like something that's very discounted in a lot of like coaching. You know, people are normally just like, this is the most optimal way, rather than like, are you going to consistently do this? Yeah. You know? But when it comes to, I guess, I know this might be difficult. I don't expect you to have any I guess like answer on this, because
I have all the answers.
I don't think anybody really knows this. It's kind of hard. I know it just probably differs greatly per person, but I think there's a lot of times where many times a lot of us don't really, it's hard for us to tell whether or not we're making the progress that we want. Yeah. You know, especially because it's so slow over a long period of time. So like say that you decide to experiment on like doing a lower rep range for legs, like 10 reps or like, I don't know, 6 months. And then you did like, I don't know, 20 reps again for 6 months. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever even actually going to commit to that long of a period of time for this test, but just say that you tested at least both separately. Yeah. And it was hard for you to tell whether or not you grew more from one, because the growth is just so slow over a long period of time. Yeah. What if you were eating a little bit more carbs, or what if you just, maybe what if you were just like eating more carbs when you were doing the higher rep range, but you couldn't really tell, you didn't really know. And then it turned out like maybe you were just more full with glycogen, so it looked bigger. Like, do you have any indicators that you've seen from your clients where they're like, it seems like maybe they're responding better?
I mean, you know, to your point, some people will argue like, oh, you're just, like you said, more full, you have more glycogen in the muscle. But dude, like 20 rep squats have been around forever, since the early 1900s. I mean, there was the Super Squats book in the 1950s by John McCallum and Randall Strassen and stuff like that. That was the way before we had the internet or science, or even, I mean, well, there was magazines in the 50s and whatnot, but like if you wanted to put on weight, you did 20 rep squats. Like that was it, you know? So I think it works, even though again, some science guys be like, oh, there's no such thing as delts respond better to this rep range and calves respond better to this rep range. I don't know, man. There's so much evidence. And I've had people, this is funny. So I've had guys in weight classes, and this is way back in the day when I didn't know what I knew now. And I've had colleagues say the same thing, where they had to stay in a weight class. So you have a couple options, right? You could just train them like 1 to 3 reps, super low volume and long rest periods, so they don't put on size, they just gain strength. But sometimes that becomes a lot on your joints and becomes boring if you're training someone long, you know, a long time. Yeah. So I remember a couple times, and I took me probably 5 times before I realized it wasn't a fluke, where I was like, all right, well, let's just do all sets of like 20 to 25 because that's endurance and you won't grow. And the guys grew out of their weight classes doing that, doing 20 rep squats and stuff. Yeah, so like that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that I have colleagues that have had the same thing, that's good enough evidence for me. I don't give a fuck what any new study that just came out last week says. That's good enough for me, you know?
Yeah.
But again, it could depend on your genetics, right? Like your fiber type, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some people might do 20 rep squats. I have a friend who's super fast twitch. Like he's just explosive and whatnot. And if he does high reps, he will get smaller. And he looks like flat and soft and stringy, you know what I mean? He gets smaller, he gets weaker, he can't recover. So he has to do lower reps and lower volume and just like do explosive stuff and heavy stuff, you know? So it is individual.
Damn. That's cool. No, that's exactly what I was looking for, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I could just tell everybody, like, try to just get your, like, I don't know, if you really don't know, just get some genetic testing and check for yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe it might help, because it is kind of hard for anyone, especially beginners. Like, they're never, I feel like it's going to take them years to figure something like that out.
Yeah.
Unless they decide to actually do like some inducive experiments over a long period of time, which I don't think anyone wants to ever do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They just want to go in the gym and fucking kill it.
Right.
So real quick, guys. So while I was looking at the YouTube analytics, I actually saw that 85% of you guys that watch this channel are not subscribed. And I want to ask very little of you guys, but if you enjoy this podcast, if you find value in it, then please do me this one favor and subscribe to the channel, because doing so helps me get bigger and greater guests like the guests you are listening to today. Also, this channel is not sponsored, which means only the companies that I work with, which are Young LA and Huge Supplements, are the companies that can help fund this channel by you guys using the code NILE. So code NILE gives you a discount of 15% off of Young LA, and code NILE also gives you a discount of 10% off of Huge Supplements. And if you decide to purchase anything from any of these companies, it will help immensely for me by using my code. And this way, I can travel to other guests, such as Dr. Mike Israetel next week, and also upgrade in equipment to make this podcast bigger and better for you guys. I want to ask, though, because I know you've talked about this in a lot of podcasts, but how did this entire thing start for you?
I was a fat kid growing up.
Okay.
I was super insecure and shy and socially awkward and like dorky and not the best athlete. And then then I grew. So up until high school, that's how I was. And then I grew like a foot. So I went into high school, I think it was like 5 feet. I think it was exactly 5 feet tall, and I was fat. And then I grew a foot. And so I was skinny fat. And I was always obsessed with pro wrestling as a kid. I remember 1982, I was born in 74. And so 82 was the first year I watched pro wrestling, and I just became obsessed with it. So I would watch, guys that were larger than life every Saturday morning, like Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, and Mr. Perfect, and Mr. Wonderful, and all these guys. And the Road Warriors. And I was like, man, I want to be jacked like those guys, Again, you could relate, right? Like being a kid like that where you're not like that. You're like, I want to fucking be like that, And so the craziest thing happened in 1988. My cousin Christine started dating a dude named Eric, who was a professional wrestler, and they lived 2 houses down from us. And he was 6'5", 240, 250, something like that. So I would get to see this guy all the time. So he was like, he got me into the gym, and I went from literally doing nothing to training 2 hours, 7 days a week, which was not great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably the opposite of what I needed. But I just, probably like yourself, and a lot of people, once you get bitten by the iron bug, you're like, I'm hooked,
Yeah.
And then it was like, man, I'm getting so much bigger. I'm stronger. Like my confidence was starting to improve. I was starting to see how it transferred over and everything in my life. And I was like, fuck, I wish I could have done this earlier. I would have been such a better athlete. I would have gotten cut from all the teams and all those things.
Yeah.
And then, so in college, I went into college. Communications was my major, but then I decided to switch to exercise science, and I started interning in the weight room and whatnot. And then I actually got tuberculosis in college, which was crazy. Oh. No one I knew since like Doc Holliday got that, right? Like, I was completely short. I had to stay home for like a semester off and take 30 pills a day and all that stuff. And during that time, I ordered in the back of Iron Man magazine. Is Iron Man even still a thing? Iron Man magazine? I don't know. But in the back of it, you could order VHS tapes on like everything ever, and you could get like certifications and stuff. So I did that while I was home on bed rest. That summer, I started training people because I was interning in the weight room. And then my dad, to this day, my first client, his name is Mike Schwab. He's in his 40s now. He was 13. I started training him because my dad knew his dad. I started training Mike for, he was my first athlete. I'm sorry. I was training adults in the morning. And then after school, Mike came in and he was a football player and a wrestler. And I trained Mike all for the next 10 years or whatever. And he started referring me people. And then I just saved every dime I could and invested in a small basement space. It was literally underground. It wasn't just underground. It was literally underground. And I started the gym and, put every dime I had probably for the next, like on my 21st birthday, I was sound asleep. I didn't have a drink because I was just grinding, working, just building the business. And that was, the next 15 years. And then things kind of just took off. I started writing online in 2001, Elite FTS and Dave Tate and all that, and like T-Nation. And then I got into different magazines, and then they eventually gave me my own column, the Hard Gainer column in Men's Fitness. Because in our gym, I couldn't tell you how many guys we had. Like skinny kids would come in and gain 30 to 50 pounds in a year. So that kind of like became my thing, and we were one of those like underground warehouse hardcore style gyms. There was like a record board and people were getting in fights and shit. It was a small 1,000 square foot, but like it was a sick atmosphere in there. And so that was kind of like the early days.
Do you feel like most of your experience has been with, I guess, people that are a little bit more in like the beginner stages of like lifting and fitness, or has it been kind of like all across the board?
No, it's been everything. It's been everything. Yeah. I mean, in the early days, obviously when you're just starting, you're not going to have like an NFL player calling you, but, I'd say the first few years was all beginners, and then all my high school guys would go on to college, and they go, not all of them, but they go on to pro, and then they bring teammates back, and then eventually I'm starting to get invited in. I've had teams like Giants, Jets, Falcons, Browns, Dodgers, Twins all invite me in and stuff like that. So those guys, not obviously. Some of those guys, yes, high level, advanced. Some of those guys, super beginner. Like you'll go to an NFL weight room, and be like, has that guy ever picked up a weight before? Like, what the fuck's going on? You know what I mean? And then now I work with some WWE guys, and some of those guys, beginner-ish level, which is crazy.
Really?
Yeah. In terms of like their execution and their knowledge and stuff, and some guys just super high level, it kind of just depends. So yeah, all across the board now over 30 years.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
What would you say are like some of the biggest differences you've noticed when training like expert level athletes and people versus like beginner?
Now at this stage of my career, it's a lot more fun because they instantly get what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if I make a tweak, they can be like, hey, just tuck your elbows another 15 degrees. They get it instantly. Yeah. Or if I do this, and then they have the light bulb moment where someone beginner will be like, yeah, I don't feel it. And I'm like, all right, well, you'll feel it in a month. You know what I mean? But like, that's fun when they get it. So like, they just have great kinesthetic awareness. They're very perceptive. They're very dialed into their body. Like you say one thing, like, oh yeah, I got that, And then the advanced guys, as you wouldn't be where you're at, do the shit you tell them, right? Like if I say, hey, eat another 7 grams of protein 6 times a day, like, yep, I got it exactly, or whatever it is, So that's more fun with someone, I guess, in any endeavor when someone's really dialed in and they get stuff and they're going to do what you tell them to do,
Right. Okay. Yeah. What about when it comes down to like the programming?
I would say it's still probably most of my advanced guys, I have to hold them back because they want to do too much. Yeah, like even before I came here, I was texting with a buddy and a client. He's a WWE wrestler, but he was also a 2012 Olympian. So he's got like, grew up as an Olympic wrestler. So all he wants to do is train all day. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you got to hold him back. And then WrestleMania was coming up. WrestleMania was 2 weeks ago. And so he was trying to peak, like look his best too, which is fun. That's what's fun about training wrestlers, like a combination of like physique, but also performance. So it's awesome. And he was just like, every day texting me, like, tell me I'm a fucking idiot. I want to do extra drop sets and do an extra hour cardio. I'm like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. Don't do it. Like, just trust the process. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think for the advanced guys, really with the program, it's actually holding them back a little and not having them do dumb stuff and overtrain. I would say, especially with guys, so most of my high level guys are either pro athletes or they're like high level CEOs or something, where it's like, dude, you're stressed out of your mind. You're running 5 different businesses. Like, you have to understand that training's a stressor, you know, not sleeping all day and living on caffeine's a stressor. So we kind of got to bring your volume down a little, maybe your training intensity down a little, maybe do more low intensity cardio instead of the HIIT stuff that you want to do. You know what I mean? And then the pro guys, same thing. It's like, you're already, like with the wrestlers, they're on the road 52 weeks a year. They're taking 3 to 5 flights, not 5, but 3+ flights a week, taking bumps all the time. So it's like your body's destroyed, you know what I mean? So most guys at the higher level, I'm having to hold them back. Whereas beginners, maybe sometimes they're not super into it like you and I are. So you got to push them a little bit more, like, you know what I mean?
That makes a lot of sense. I think that's something that we like undervalue so much and we don't really think about. But I think even when I might be a little bit of a different case, but I've noticed this is consistently throughout my entire lifting career. But I've always kind of just, if I felt like I wasn't doing enough, then I do extra. You know?
Yeah.
Same thing in even since the beginning. Like every time I did leg day, I thought I literally just had to blow my brains out on squats, and then I go to like my accessories, and before I realize it, I've already like just caused myself massive fatigue just from the first exercise alone, just because I thought that's how hard leg day was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's like, all I did was just reel back a little bit on the intensity, because I still need to meet my like minimum volume requirement.
Yeah.
Like literally like last year, and I feel like my legs have blown up. And it's sometimes it's just frustrating, you know, because like if you feel like you can do more and more, and like if you've been like, you know, like you were saying, someone who's been like an athlete in a sport for a long time, or maybe like your coach just always pushed you super hard when you were a kid, it's hard not to feel like you shouldn't always be pushing that limit. Yeah,
you feel like lazy or whatever, like you're letting yourself down or something. Yeah.
But I think that's what's really nice about having like a coach like you that like understands, like there is like what is it? There's a certain level where like once you pass it just not only does it become negligible, but sometimes it just hurts against you, right?
Yeah.
So I think if we could just find that place, is there any recommendation that you have for people to like find out what their like maybe their perfect amount of volume is? Because it's very dependent based off of their lifestyle too, right?
Yeah. It's hard. Like I said, I would just start on the lower end and kind of go from there and see like, are you able to kind of progressive overload? Are you getting stronger? How do your joints feel? How's your sleep? How's your mood? All the things that, you know, training is going to impact. And then, you know, that's when I might look at studies and then also even real world stuff. Like what have most people done throughout time? Like there seems to be an average, let's say, and even studies, you know, if you want to look at these days, like maybe somewhere between 8 and 12 sets per body part per week seems to be like a good number for most people. You know what I mean? Maybe some people can tolerate way more than that, and some people can tolerate less than that. But generally, I would start people like in that range, like 10. If you're more of a beginner, I might do more volume because it's just practice, and you're not going to be taking sets to failure, obviously, because you don't even know how to do the exercise. It's just more, we're just working on kind of intramuscular coordination and learning how to do the thing over and over again. So someone like that, if they've never done a squat before, maybe we'll do 10 sets of 5 or something 3 days a week to learn how to do it, you know. So they're doing 30 sets of squats, but it's not going to kill them like if you and I did 30. So like if I did 30 sets of squats a week, like I'd be calling a doctor or something, you know what I mean? Yeah. So again, it kind of depends where you are in your journey. Now, if you're someone who's super strong and you can get on the hack and put on 8 plates aside for 12, you ain't doing 30 sets of that, you know what I mean? Like 1 or 2 sets per leg day might be enough, you know, if you're doing leg extensions and lunges and stuff like that. Kind of just depends.
Right. This might be a little bit of a touchy subject. I don't know if you have experience in it or if you're even open to talking about it. Obviously, no names have to be involved. But do you happen to have experience training people that have been on steroids, whether or not they told you or not?
Yeah, for sure.
Have you noticed like a difference in training them versus others?
I would say in 2003 or 4, something like that, Dave Tate said to me, he goes, you know, I think there's a huge misconception that people on stuff should do way more volume. He said they can contract way harder, and it also, so being on juice kind of ramps up your nervous system and stuff like that too, you know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot more fatigue from your training when you're out. Everyone's like, oh, it just helps you recover, but not necessarily. Like it kind of just depends. Like recover how, right? Yes, you're more anabolic and it enhances protein synthesis and things like that, but it doesn't really do that much for your nervous system. And again, like, so Dave was saying, every contraction is more intense. Like if I'm natural and I do 10 reps of bench, but if I'm on sauce and do 10 reps, like it's just harder on my body. I'm contracting way harder. Like, and I was like, oh, I never thought, I had no experience with it at that point. And I have kind of seen that over the years where some of the guys that are on a lot of stuff actually do better lowering their volume because, you know, they're able to put so much into every single set, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive.
That's cool to hear.
Yeah.
That's cool to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the common bro science is like,
yeah,
if you're on gear, you can do more, you know?
Yeah.
Might as well work as fucking hard as possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the thing is this, like, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around that. One being, if you have really good genetics, you're going to you'll grow more. Like I have shit genetics. So someone with great genetics is going to grow way more from doing 3 sets than I will, right? You're just going to grow more. So I think people think like, oh, if you have shit genetics, you should do really low volume because your recovery is not great. I could argue that it's the opposite. Like, so I'll give you like an anecdote, right? Like, so if me and Michael Jordan go practice basketball and we practice 5 hours a week, he's going to be exponentially better doing 5 hours a week than I am doing 5 hours a week. I'm going to need 35 hours to progress at the same rate he is. You know what I mean? So maybe it's the opposite of what most people think. Maybe if shit genetics, you need to do a lot more work, not less. And that was always the kind of hard gainer myth, is like, oh, if you're a hard gainer, you can only do 2 sets twice a week and just take a nap the rest of the time. You know what I mean? Maybe it's the exact. I found it to be counterintuitive and the opposite with a lot of people. Like, you just need to do more stuff, bro. Like, your genetics suck. Yeah. Same thing with juice. Like, someone with great genetics could do 200 milligrams a week of test and be humongous. Someone who has shit genetics, generally they're a shit responder to juice. Yeah. So they would need 600 to get what you're getting out of 200. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All that's kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like that also is true with like their capacity to do more, or like the level of fatigue that is overwhelming for those people that are hard gainers?
I think so they do. So if someone's a hard gainer, they do have generally lower work capacity. Yes. And so they need to work on improving that. So for a hard gainer, like, let's say you say to me, hey, I'm growing out of my mind, training 3 days a week. I'll be like, great. But this guy has absolute shit genetics and he can't do a lot of volume. So let's say you go, I do 24 sets of workout. I'll be like, well, this guy will be dead in the water if he does 24 sets of workout. Maybe he should do 12, but train 6 days a week. So it's more manageable, you know? So he slowly builds up his work capacity. Okay. Yeah.
But then you still believe he needs to figure out how to do like more work if he has worse genetics.
Again, it's always so nuanced, it's a gray area, but generally, yeah, probably more than the old like 1980s hard gainer approach. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. But again, that's why it's hard to give, because the answer is it depends for everything. But like, I would still stick in that. Let's show what real world evidence and science is showing. Let's stick in like 10 sets of body part a week and say, how you doing? You feel good? All right, cool. Maybe let's push it up. And are you getting stronger? Are you growing? No. Then why would we do 15? It's just more wear and tear on your joints, which you don't appreciate when you're younger, but when you're almost 50 like me, you want to minimize the mileage and the wear and tear on your joints too. You know what I mean? So if you're getting like an extra 1 or 2% growth from doubling or tripling your volume, how are your elbows, shoulders, and knees going to feel in 20 years? Let's consider that too, which I didn't consider back in the day. Now I strongly consider for anyone I train of any age.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not even old, I guess, respectively. And I'm already feeling it everywhere.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to I didn't even really understand the concept of overtraining when I was younger.
Yeah.
I just thought you needed to train hard.
Right.
Now I'm realizing that I actually it's nice to be able to say this, right? Without being just, I guess, cocky about it, but I was actually training really hard, in fact probably a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So in the last couple of years, I actually I encountered some pretty severe exertional headaches. And from my most recent coach, I realized a good portion of this obviously could have been I need to improve my breathing as well.
Yeah.
But it was just to a level where I'd be pushing myself so hard in squats, and then I moved to hack squats. And one incident where at the very last set of hack squats, I was going to failure again, and instead my like head just exploded.
Feels like someone hit you with a bat, right?
Yeah.
Knock on wood, I haven't had one of those in like a long time, but I wouldn't be able to train for like 2 weeks. Like I would be seeing lights and shit.
Yes.
Like I couldn't even get out of bed. It felt terrible.
Like I was able to move around. I was able to do things, but every time I just put a little effort into like doing a rep on anything, even if it was just a tricep extension, I couldn't. Yeah. So I was out of the gym for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a realization that I'm like, like I love the like push hard, like work as hard as you possibly can, everything. But there definitely needs to be some kind of awareness over like everything that's going on in your life, how many stressors there are, just what's the level of fatigue accumulation in your body, not just from like lifting, but just like from lack of sleep and just like psychological things too, right? Like, are you having fights with your wife or your partner? You know, are you having like issues with various relationships?
You got to consider all those things. It all contributes.
But I don't know. Shit's complicated.
Yeah.
If you feel like any of the medications that we spoke about today may benefit you, such as BPC 157, GH secretagogues such as Tesamorelin, IGF-1, oxandrolone troche, Semaglutide, then you can obtain these from Transcend HRT, and the link for that will be in the bio. If you feel like you're experiencing symptoms of low testosterone, such as depression, anxiety, lack of motivation, as well as lack of sex drive, then you can get this checked out as well by getting your blood work done at Transcend, and they will provide you expert medical analysis. Transcend HRT has worked with many professional bodybuilders and pro athletes, such as Thor Bjornsson, Phil Heath, and Jeremy Buendia. And if you feel like this podcast has any relevancy to you, I do believe that this clinic will provide of great benefit to you as well. I know this is a spicy take, but I just feel like that's why I feel like everyone should at least have like one experience with like marijuana with just like their favorite friends and family, you know? I'm just like, what better way to just like connect and get really deep into your emotions? For sure. So you, I appreciate that you asked me actually about my the pin post on my Instagram. Like obviously it's a post that I really like means a lot to me. Of course, you know, it's my history and everything. So that's why I keep it pinned, of course. But out of curiosity, because it seemingly like it's something a little bit similar to what you experienced too. Did you ever have any, I guess, similar encounters or experiences, being one that was like overweight, and like, was your relationship with your family any similar?
I mean, I was, you know, I just remember always like getting my ass kicked by other kids and getting bullied and getting stuffed in lockers and kids knock my books down. You know what's funny is, speaking of like doing edibles and whatnot. So one time, have you gone in a float tank?
No.
Okay, I'm a big fan of float tanks. So I was in a float tank, and so I went to the place that kind of popularized it in Venice for a year without taking anything. And I always heard Rogan talk about how float tanks are great when you take an edible. But I wanted to just experience it and get like good at it, because it's kind of like meditating where you get good at it or better at it. And then finally I started taking edibles before I went in, and I was like, yo, this is next level. Like I was figuring shit out and having all these flashbacks and all this stuff in there. It was like crazy. And prior to that, if you asked me like the names of some of these kids who used to punk me out, beat me up, I wouldn't be able to remember it. Like I must have repressed it for some reason. But I walked in the house and I said to my wife, I said these 5 names. She's like, who are those people? What are you talking about? I was like, those are the kids that used to beat the shit out of me.
Oh my God.
I figured out like, that's why I have a chip on my shoulder about certain things, and I prove certain things. Like it was crazy. It was very, very eye opening. So yeah, I mean, I didn't have the best, like I hated school. I hated like everything about it. I hated not being, you know, Mr. Popular and all that kind of stuff. And you know, my relationship, like my parents so I moved and went to a new school for high school. So I graduated middle school, and the middle school kids that I graduated with, like almost everyone that I hung out with had been arrested multiple times in middle school.
Damn.
And I felt like I just had the wherewithal, and kind of like, I knew if I go to high school with these kids, I think my life is going to end. Like, I think I'm just going to be a deadbeat disaster, end up in jail or something. So it was kind of fortunate that I went to another high school. But picture, I'm 13 going to a school where I know nobody, and my parents got divorced that summer, and that summer was just nonstop fighting, just screaming and fighting and everything. It was literally, I think they got divorced like the week before I started school. So I'm angry as could be. This was 1988, and I'm just playing. Like back then, nobody listened to hip hop like they do today. Like it was like I knew like 5 white kids who listen to hip hop, and so I'm going to school with like my pants sagging and listening to like Public Enemy and NWA, all fucking pissed off. I don't want to talk to anybody, and so my relationship with my dad has never been great. I don't know if it's even been good. It's probably been like decent. Like there was a lot of rough stuff that we went through. And, you know, it's funny when you said, my dad said, I'm proud of you. I was like, when has my dad said that? And I can't remember. I don't know. I'm not sure if he has or not, you know? Mm-hmm. So I can totally relate to that. You know, I think what's cool for me now is having done all the work and having evolved to the point where it's like, I'm okay with that. You know, it is a natural thing for men to want their dads to be proud of them, but it's not controlling me. It's not like, oh, my dad never says that, or my dad never calls to check on me or see what's going on or see how I'm doing or doesn't give a fuck. It's like, I don't know, I could go 6-7 months without even thinking about it, you know, or thinking of him or anything, which is not trying to be like, it is what it is. Like I've gotten to that point, right? Whereas on the other hand, I know people who struggle, and people in my own family and stuff like that, who are like, I want his approval. And it's like, bro, you got to move on with your life. You're 40. You know what I mean? Like you're not getting it. Seek validation and approval or some other way or something, you know, like learn to love yourself and be okay with that. And then cultivate and curate an inner circle of cool people who will always have your back and support you and help you level up, you know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, again, to answer your question, yeah, I could definitely relate to everything you're talking. That's why I said, I love that post, because I can totally relate. And I think it's just cool on social media for people to share struggles and vulnerability and stuff like that. Because that makes you relatable. I think social media a lot of times is just like a highlight reel of, oh, I'm doing so great. It's like, bro, no one's doing so great 24/7, 365. Like we all have struggle. We all have pain, insecurity, baggage, self-limiting beliefs, false narratives. The Rock has that, right? Like there's nobody on the planet that doesn't have all those things, you know? That's why I always say when you meet someone for the first time, you basically have a cheat sheet, and most people want to be heard. They want to be understood. They want to feel important. So like at the beginning of this, you were like, is this my interview? But that's just what I default to now, because I'm a people person and I love getting to know people's stories. Mm-hmm. But it's also a gift to you, whereas most people are like this all the time. Yeah, what's up, bro? What's going on? Like nobody's ever fully present. And like your full presence is a gift. That's why it's called present, right? So I always want to be fully present and engaged. I want to know everything about you. I want to make people, like I'm never going to go anywhere and not be at my best self, be at a 10 and leave that people weren't like, that was cool. I'm glad we hung out. Like I feel better. Like if I'm going to dinner with 6 people, on the way there, I go, I'm going to make everyone's night. Everyone's going to have a better time because I'm there. They're going to be more connected. Even if 2 guys don't know each other, they're going to be good friends by the time I leave. Like I worked for years to do that. Again, I grew up like, dude, honestly, until I was in my mid-30s, I was not like that at all. Like I barely knew anybody. I barely spoke. You know what I mean? Like it's just been a lot of work to do that. I feel like I'm off on some tangent. I don't even know what the question was.
When did you say was the start of like your real lifting journey again? Into getting training?
When I was 12.
When you were 12.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was like about a year before the divorce happened.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Mm. That's crazy. That's the same year that I started too. Was 12 years old.
Really?
How do you feel like that journey, I guess, changed over the course of like your family going through that divorce and then you being in that new high school where you're meeting new people, but also at the same time you were starting your lifting journey? So I'm assuming that's also when you were building some confidence. Yeah,
I mean, it was always, like The Rock has said, like it's your anchor. Like it was always just there for me. You know the famous oh my God, Henry Rollins thing about the iron. Have you read that? Dude, you've never seen that? I gotta send it to you. But it's this whole thing about how the iron's always there for you. It never lies to you. It never betrays you. 200 pounds is always 200 pounds. It's just you versus the iron. It's amazing. Yeah. And so I just found that to be the case all through high school and college, my entire life, you know, through the struggles. So I graduated high school, same height I am now, at 147 pounds. And I gained 80 pounds. Somehow I went from 147 to 227. I walked around at 227 for, I don't know, years and years and years. I only got below that probably when I was like around 40 because I was never ripped, like, and I always wanted to have abs, you know what I mean? I was like a big lineman looking motherfucker, you know?
Holy shit.
And I was strong as fuck, but so now, you know, I'm nowhere near, maybe 190 at the most. But I just feel, you know, being my age, like, and having the genetics that I do, like, I just feel better walking around lighter.
Yeah.
You know, whenever I'm with someone who's jacked, I'm like, I should gain 10 pounds. And then I'll eat for 3 days, and I'm like, I can't eat like that anymore. I just don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
But yeah, but it's just always just been that anchor. And no matter what I'm going through, the last couple years, you know, I've had more stress than I've had in probably all the years prior, just do a lot of personal things, a lot of things that happen. And I never missed a workout. I couldn't. I would lose my mind if I missed a workout. I almost, you know, going back to talking about like overtraining and stuff, I've probably overtrained the last 2 years, doing a little too much, but it was the only way I kept my sanity, you know? Mm-hmm. So there's that to it too. Like a lot of people, maybe sometimes, and even that I would say goes back to our conversation about what's optimal. It's like, man, if you enjoy the fuck out of going to the gym 5 days a week, if you're going to grow more on 3, but you just love going 5, or you're going to grow more on 4 versus 5, it's like, hey man, that's your thing. Like that's your anchor. You know what I mean? Maybe you got to train 7 days a week, and that's what keeps you sane. Like I have good friends that have to train 7 days a week because they're like, I'll lose my mind if I don't. I'm like, I get it. Do it, man. You know?
Yeah. No, I have friends like that too. One of them, I like tell her that she needs to get, you know, she needs to take some time off sometimes, but she consistently wants to do abs every day. And then the one rest day that she has on Sunday, she has to go on a hike still. Really? Which I guess is great. You know, you do an active rest day, but man, there's a lot of activity. I feel like she's in the gym for 2 to 3 hours every day. Oh, wow. I don't know how long the hike is by itself. So that's a lot. But she loves it and makes her happy. Yeah. You know? Some people are just different like that, I think. Yeah. I'm a little bit stuck right now because I'm just really resonating with what you're saying about your past, and it's hitting home in some places for me. But I guess, did you ever feel like there was any change in dynamic with your parents, even to this day, like now where you are now?
Yeah, that's why I asked you if you would get a pit in your stomach, like if we're going to LAX and you're going to fly home, because one of the reasons I moved here. So I moved here when I was 36, and the whole reason was, obviously I love it here, but mainly my goal was to reinvent myself and become someone else and shed my skin, and like just all these self-limiting beliefs I had, all these false narratives, all the insecurity, the guy who never had a lot of friends. I wanted to become someone totally different. And some people are strong enough to do that in their own hometown. I don't think most people are. Like, you need to change of scenery, you need to get away, you need to push yourself. I mean, just traveling and being in different places, you have different perspectives, you meet different people, you start to think differently, you process things differently. So that was my main goal for moving here, was really to become someone else, like become someone that I actually loved and admired, and you know what I mean? So I got here, I could show you after my phone. I knew 3 people when I got here, and now, so I have everyone categorized by LA, just in case like I'm having a party or doing whatever. I could scroll for like 20 minutes of all the numbers of people I know in LA. And that was intentional. Like when I got here, I was like, okay, how do I not be who I was for the previous 36 years? How do I get out of my comfort zone? So I took stand-up classes. I took improv at Second City for 2 years. Dude, improv was a game changer. Sick. And anything that previously made me uncomfortable, I always push myself, speak a little more, speak a little louder. Don't be the guy in the elevator who's looking at his phone. Just look at someone and compliment them and be like, oh, young LA, I've seen that on Instagram. What's that all about? Is that your friend's company? Like whatever. Oh, I like your tattoos, right? Like just look for ways to strike up more conversations and kind of be the guy who's like lights up the room and, you know, is comfortable in his own skin and makes other people feel comfortable. And so it was a long journey, dude. And then I stopped reading about training and business for like years. All I would read is like how to win friends and influence people and never eat alone and fascinate and captivate and 92 ways to talk to anyone and all kinds of stuff like this. And I would go on meetup.com and go to every event I could, just like trying to work on that, right? And another thing I wanted to do was in 2006, there was, I was always comfortable in my own gym. Like I could have 20 college and high school pro athletes in there and run shit. I'm controlling the music, I'm controlling everything. But if we went out to dinner with 6 people, I would be the quiet guy. I'd be so socially awkward and nervous, even though I like got tattoos and put on like this suit of armor with like tattoos and 80 pounds of muscle. I'm still like, oh, I'm so nervous and shy and awkward and weird. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to be like that. And so, so just going through that journey, like really just helped me overcome a lot of that stuff and actually, you know, be someone that I wanted to be and liked. And it was just the culmination of all those things, the experience and pushing myself. And so where I was going with 2006 was I could be that guy in the gym, But I was always like, I would never go speak at a seminar or anything. And people would ask me, I was like, no, I got a wedding that weekend or something, you know, and I just make shit up. And then finally I was like, I got to try it. In 2006, it was called the Big Seminar, and it was in Boston. It was me, Dave Tate, Jim Wendler, Alan Cosgrove, who's like one of the best speakers in fitness and a close friend of mine since 96, and CJ Murphy. And as I'm driving up, I'm a nervous wreck. It's like 4-hour drive from Jersey. And I'm like, I know I'm going to suck. I'm going to be the worst speaker ever. And I fulfilled that prophecy. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I was terrible. I was literally the worst speaker in the history of public speaking. I couldn't get a word out. I was pouring sweat. I was almost like pissing myself. And it was so bad that on the drive home, I said, see, why did I do that? Like, I told myself I would suck, of course, you know? And so I didn't speak again for years, but I had been going through this stuff when I moved here. And one day Bedros asked me, he goes, hey, we're doing a mastermind in Vegas. There's going to be like 50 people. Would you mind coming to speak? And I was like, fuck yeah. And I knew I was going to be good. And I knew I was going to fucking like make people have a really good time.
Like all the things you put yourself through, like improv classes.
Yeah. So it's been a few years of doing that. I was like, yes, let's go. And then I just started speaking all the time. And then I started doing, in Jersey, I would have my own training seminars at the gym. And so like, you know, 30 people would fly in from around the country and around the world. It was just 2 days of me teaching them how to do exercises and stuff, right? But like I said, now that I'm actually confident and I can do this stuff, I want to start doing live events again, but I don't just want to be in the gym. I want the gym to be like 2 or 3 hours a day. And I want to share all the stuff that I've gone through. Because most of my audience that's followed me a long time, they started to ask me more about that than training. They'd be like, yo, I've seen this crazy transformation that you've made, like the circles that you hang in, the things that you do, like your vibe, your mindset. How do you do that? Like, and how did you get so much more confident? Because, so anyway, I'm going off on a lot. I started doing these events that were just for men. It was small. So we were limited to like 16 men. And it was basically like, how do you do all the things I do? Like, how do you double your confidence? How do you improve all your relationships? How do you become a super connector? And all that, right? And like it's like there's more and more things like that nowadays where guys can share vulnerability and guys can, you know, work on that. There's like men's groups and stuff, but there was very few of those when I started doing it. And to this day, that's what I actually enjoy more than training someone. Like after 30 years, like, you know, it's still exciting. All right, someone lost 50 pounds and they gained 30 pounds, but it's like I've done that a million times.
So many times.
Yeah, to see someone. Like for example, Kenny was his name is Kenny Camacho. He was in our program, and he came to an event, and then I hadn't seen him. None of us had seen him for like 90 days, and he was walking a few blocks towards us at the next event. And people were like, oh, there's Kenny. And we're like, no, that can't be Kenny. We said it can't be Kenny because his posture and his confidence, even from 3 blocks away, was so different. Yeah. Like, it's like, that's so dope to see people like that and, you know, just become someone else and improve those kind of things. There's something else I was going to say, but I lost my train of thought. But yeah, you can see I go off on tangents.
No, it's a great tangent, dude. I myself have had a hard time, I think, just not only speaking and having like normal conversations since I was a kid, but the hardest thing for me was presence and attention. And can't really tell you why. Didn't psychoanalyze myself too much. I did actually, but I don't know the answer. It could be the fact that maybe I was diagnosed with ADHD. I don't know how much that contributes, but I think I just realized, like, I think I'm lacking in a lot of the things that life has to offer me because I'm having issues just keeping attention on one thing. And by keeping attention on one thing, that also causes me to have issues in just being present, like with the people around me or the person I'm just talking to. And I feel like in that I have like lost some of the connection that I could have gained in my relationships. Right. And I kind of was just like living day to day and acting how I think I should act as, like, say, a fraternity member in my college back then, or like a dude that I think should be I guess, quote unquote, high value in my university at the time. Like maybe I should be getting smart, getting jacked, and like talking to girls, and I just like act out with these things, but I'd never actually just sit down with somebody and like really feel what they're going through and really like connect with everything that they're saying, and they're like just emanating out to me. Yeah. Like I never really felt these things, I think. So it was a long journey, I think. And I think there was countless experiences that contributed to that. But I can say that just like you put yourself through improv classes, I find that I think one of the best things that I did was honestly just make myself do this podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. For sure.
And
for sure. Yeah. I've been doing it. It was just 10 years, like a couple of weeks ago. And that's, so I started it selfishly for me. And so, yeah, you do improve so much for that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And God, dude, was it like so nerve wracking the first time I started up? I'm like, I have no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to sound like an absolute loser. I still look back on like my first few podcasts and I'm like, God, dude, I sound so bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an experience that we all have to go through, because what I've realized is no matter who you are, it's just like taking the step in the pond, or like taking that first step that's going to propel you in the direction of growing into who you want to be. It's not premeditating what it takes to get there and then doing the right thing. It's literally just starting, right? And you figure it out along the way. Like, just like coaching somebody is trial and error.
Yeah.
You have to literally test the waters with that person before you know what works.
Yeah.
Same thing with, I think, any of these professions or any of these things that we want to improve in. So how do you feel like you are now in terms of like being president and all that, like compared to where you were and where you'd want to be, maybe ideally? I think obviously I think I can always improve, but from now versus like 2 years ago, fucking phenomenal. It's a crazy
awesome
difference.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's almost like this, it's almost like a place where I like tap into. Like if I'm talking with somebody, I feel like myself like kind of just like drifting off and stuff. I'm like step into the podcast space, like literally step into the podcast space and be present with that person. And it works.
Yeah.
It works. I don't know why, but it works.
Yeah. Well, what I think a lot of people miss out on when they're not fully present is how enjoyable it is and how you can actually get into a flow state when you're really fully present with somebody. And also think about when you give someone physically a present, like let's say, you and I are best friends, and for Christmas you gave me some Walter Payton things. You know, I'm a Walter Payton fan. Like you get excited if I get excited when I open it up, right? Like I feel good.
Yeah.
And you feel great because you gave me something that makes me feel good. But that's the same thing. Like you're giving someone a gift, even though it's not physically there. You're giving someone a gift of your presence and full attention, and that feels so great. You know. Going
off of that, I think one of the things that it's made it the easiest for me is, like you said, like when you're giving someone giving someone a gift, it's like it's kind of similar to like giving someone the gift of your presence.
Yeah.
I find that if I just really truly just care about someone, just literally like care about you as I'm talking to you, just give a fucking shit, you know, then it changes everything. It literally changes everything, because I'm not just there to like continue the conversation. I'm literally there because I'm interested in you. I'm interested in what you're going through, and this matters to me. So the way that I engage, I find just shifts. Yeah. And I mean, we can all say these things, but I know on a daily basis, it's hard for us to always care. Like, how hard is it for you to care about literally everything going on in your life when it's hard for you already to deal with the shit that's going on in your own, you know, it's fucking difficult. Yeah. But I think just taking that effort changes our lives.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, in order to do that, you have to shift your perspective. Like most people live with this kind of internal perspective, but if you shift to an external perspective, like if all you ever think about is the things you have to do and what your weaknesses are, what you have to improve on, and oh, I got to eat this much protein, and I got to train, and I got to do this for work. It's like you'll end up stressed out and miserable if it's all about you. Even if you're achieving high levels of success, you'll always be miserable. And that's why you see people like Kurt Cobain or Anthony Bourdain or Kate Spade or Robin Williams or something like that. Because if it's all about you, you're going to be miserable. So when I'm with someone else, like and all of a sudden I feel it. I feel my heart rate slow down, and it's crazy. It's only happened the last 3 years, but I'm like, oh shit, I'm in that flow state. Like I don't know anything else in life exists except this conversation I'm having with you right now, which is awesome. Yeah. But again, it's like Dr. King said, anybody can be great because anyone can serve. And Muhammad Ali said, service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. And so a lot of people will hear that and be like, oh, I got to go to the soup kitchen, or I got to go to a third world country. It's like, no, I could serve you just by being fully present. Like if we just went to eat up the street or had coffee, if I'm on my phone the whole time, or I'm fucking distracted, or you could see it, like I'm telegraphing it, you're like, oh, he's got to go somewhere. Like you don't even want to be with me, right? But like I can serve you that service by being fully present. Like what's going on in your life, dude? You know what I mean? Like everyone wants to be heard and understood, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've said this a lot, so some of the recurring viewers already understand this, but I just have to say it right now. But 2 great examples, and I love them to death, and I want to keep talking about them because they're just so important to me. Honestly, it's actually 3 great examples, but 2 two of my best friends died within the last 2 years, and then one friend of mine that's been super famous in the fitness industry passed away like what was it, like a week after he flew back from visiting LA back to Thailand. His name was Joe Aesthetics. I don't know if you've heard of Joe Aesthetics.
Sounds,
yeah. So
sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, but it's weird because obviously I don't want my friends to die.
Yeah.
But at the same time, sometimes I feel like this, like, I'm spiritual and I'm religious, and I believe in a lot of, I believe in a lot of various philosophies and beliefs and aspects in religion, like mindfulness in Buddhist teachings, and same thing. I also grew up Christian. But something I'd like to compare it to is that sometimes I feel like these people were just brought on this earth by the universe to like fucking just deliver goodness and teach us and teach me a lesson, kind of just like Jesus was. So honestly, it blows my mind to see that these three people had the most presence out of anyone I've ever known. Like, and it was such a gracious thing because their presence was a gift.
Yeah.
In the way that they acted. They, like, Joe Aesthetics was busy, man. This guy had like 7-8 million followers on Instagram, and I don't know how much on like YouTube and all these other platforms. And just, dude, like, everybody, it seemed like everybody that followed the fitness industry knew him.
Yeah.
So everywhere we went, especially when he was visiting, literally would be stopped like every second by people just like, can I take a picture? Like, can we talk about stuff?
Yeah.
And whereas I felt like if I would be in his place, like, yes, I'd feel grateful for this, but I would also be like, fuck, I have so much to do right now. I'm supposed to get this workout.
Right.
Drive all the way over here to like take this, do this film session with another person. Because that's how our job is. It's just like back to back, like scheduling with other people, filming, and then editing. But no, the entire time he just spent talking to every person, giving everyone the time of day. If they ask advice or anything, he would literally go on tangents about how to help them. Yeah. And it's crazy to me to be like, even though he stresses so much about his job, he's still there for the people around him first. Yeah. And it was the same thing with my other two best friends. So
wow,
kind of,
I love that.
Was a huge smack in the face to me to realize like there's more important things than me just worrying about like, I don't know, fucking the measly problems that I have going on in my life that I know are going to probably change in a year or get better, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to get through it. So
yeah,
that's basically all. I remember them more than I remember anybody right now. So they obviously made a big enough impact. So I'm hoping that through a level of presence and hopefully selflessness, I can be that same kind of person.
Yeah. I think that's a great North Star for how anyone should live their life, is like, what are people going to say about you when you're gone? You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll do, sometimes at my live events, I'll do an exercise where you kind of really visualize your funeral and like who's there, what's the mood like, what are they saying? Because all of us are writing our own eulogies every day just through our interactions and our relationships and things like that, you know? And like nobody's going to get up and like tap on your casket like, man, that guy had some great abs, or like that guy fucking was really productive, he got a lot of work done, right? It's like, how'd you make them feel? That's the main, like the Maya Angelou quote, like people forget what you did, they'll forget what you said, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. You know, like that's the most important thing.
Do you want to are you done to move on to these questions? There's like a few questions.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, right before we move to the questions, I actually had something I was curious about. But do you know Dr. Mike Israetel?
I don't know him. I know an inordinate amount of people, but I don't know Mike.
Yeah. So he's an exercise scientist.
Yeah.
But he makes a crap ton of YouTube videos. He's also super hilarious, so I'm sure that's why he's exploding too. But he just does a ton of YouTube videos on like critiquing training and things like that. And it's really cool. It's awesome. And he knows, he does know what he's talking about. But something that he has been expressing that's obviously been a bit of a new like research paper has been the whole like full stretch and controlled eccentrics, not necessarily slow, but controlled eccentrics. Yeah. And it seems to me, at least with this paper, it's like finally there's a bro science thing that's kind of supported, where like bodybuilders would always say like, go for the full stretch, you know, that's going to grow your muscle the most. And now there's this paper that's out that's like the like ROMs that have an average longer length tend to induce more hypertrophy. Yeah. Right. Not necessarily length and partials, but just like the full ROM, if longer, you know, more stretched, then it seems to induce more hypertrophy. I was wondering what your thoughts were on this, and like, I guess based off of your experience, if you had any differing thoughts.
My thoughts are just based on the individual and real world. So some people might be able to squat where it's literally ass to grass, and some people, you would just destroy your hips if you do that. It depends on your anatomy. What's your femur length? You know, how does your femur sit in your hip? All those kind of things. So, and it's full range of the muscle, but it's not full range of the joint. Like, yeah, I can bring my arm way back. I mean, this chair is preventing it, but if I was going to do a dumbbell press, yeah, I could touch my elbows to the floor behind me, but I'm also going to need shoulder surgery in about a month if I do that, right? So it's like, what's the full range of the muscle? What's your injury history? What's your individual anatomy like? So, you know, like my big picture answer is, yeah, go for the most full range you can, and that you can control. And here's the thing too, like if you haven't been doing that, if you've only, let's say you've been training for 20 years, but you've only squatted parallel, and you hear that statement, and so now the next day you go, oh, I'm going to go out on a pendulum and I'm going to go sit on my heels. Your knees are going to take 6 to 8 weeks to adapt to that. So within a week, you're going to go, oh, my knees are destroyed from full squats. Full squats ruined my knees. It's like, no, it didn't. It's the fact that your knees weren't, you didn't give your tendons and ligaments a chance to adapt to that. So you got to go really slow, like use super lightweight. And I think, you know, people jump to that too much. But the full range is like, it's just, I can't make a blanket black and white kind of statement like that. It really depends on the exercise, the individual, you know what I mean?
Right.
And like I said before, I'm all about like joint health and safety and things like that.
Okay.
And then one of the things that I do with training that's kind of, I'm trying to think who else really considers this. I know John Meadows was big on this. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head, but like sequencing and movement syntax, I think, especially as you get older, gets super important. Like when you're young, yeah, just you can go in and just squat first or bench press first, but like year 40 or 50 you do that, you're going to feel awful. So I think it's really important for older guys or guys who have more mileage to do a bunch of leg curls, get a hamstring pump, maybe get a glute pump, and maybe do something else to warm up your knees, like leg extensions or some kind of split squat or something before you get to squat. So like, whereas in my 20s, squats were first, now they're maybe fourth, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And then it feels so much better too. And so to your question about the stretch stuff, like stretch stuff just feels so much better on a pumped muscle. If I go in, I'm just ice cold like a pancake, and I start doing RDLs.
Hurts my joints.
Feels terrible. Even if I do like a deep push-up or something, it's going to feel terrible. But if I get a massive pump, like I do some cable flies and I do some dumbbell presses, then I do like a deep stretch push-up or ring dip or something, like, then it feels great. It feels fine. First, your joints it feels terrible. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's so much nuance to it.
Yeah, that's why I actually asked you. I'm really glad you said that, the disclaimers, because I think those are important that people don't think about, especially with the whole full stretch science. Now everybody's just trying to go full stretch. And
then it also causes more science. It causes more soreness, and it's going to delay recovery a little bit if you're just doing a ton of stretch stuff. Yeah. So you kind of got to limit that. Like if I'm going to...
Does it really delay? How come it delays recovery?
Well, just because you cause more muscle damage. Like if you and I say, oh, we're going to do 10 sets of hamstrings a week, and I do 10 sets of seated leg curls, and you do 10 sets of RDLs, who do you think is going to be more sore and have a harder time recovering, right? Like I'm just doing a shortened position movement, you're doing a lengthened position movement, so you're going to be way more sore and way more fatigued. It's actually going to negatively impact some of your other workouts, not just your hamstring workout. But if we did 5 sets of leg curls and 5 sets of RDLs, that's going to be a little bit better. But if maybe you're going through a really stressful time, and you're like, bro, don't even do RDLs. Just do all your sets on leg curls. So like mid-range and shortened stuff, because it's easier to recover from. You know what I mean?
I see.
Yeah.
So, okay. I think that makes a lot more sense, because
you don't get sore. You'll get sore from mid-range stuff. Shortened stuff, you're never getting sore from. You know what I mean? So that's something worth considering too. Like, and there's just some people who hate being sore. So like if you're working with them as a coach and they're sore all the time, you're losing that client. So you got to consider that too, you know?
Right. I think that's why it is worthy for people to get a coach, because just kind of like when you're like starting a business, it's easier to start a business with partners rather than start a business by yourself. Same thing when you're having a coach, is like, if you feel like something's going wrong and you have to fix it, like the coach will help give you input on like what are the possible potential factors that you could kind of like improve this situation, right? Yeah. And bounce ideas off of you. So I think it just makes it easier to hone in on what is causing these issues. Yeah. Nowadays, we have like people like Dr. Mike, and then also Eric Janicki, a friend of mine who's like giant open bodybuilder, but he does these crazy full stretches. Like, dude, crazy. Like he's more flexible than I am, but he's way bigger than me. And he's gone up to, I don't know how heavy, like I think it got up to 300 pounds. But when I look
also, an argument I can make is like against that is, so you'd have to, for a fully lengthened quad, you'd have to do sissy squats the way Tom Platz used to do them, or do reverse Nordics. There's no one on the planet that's going to argue that those two exercises are the best quad building exercises. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's a fully lengthened quad. Like you could say, oh, you're getting a fully lengthened quad at the bottom of a pendulum, but not really. Your quad would have to be behind you for that to happen, like kind of, or at least in line with your torso, like Tom Platz did. Right. You know what I mean? So again, like most of the best top 10 exercises for each body part or overall are really more mid-range overload exercises. It's hard to argue that. But yeah, get a full range on that, but it still overloads the mid-range more than the stretch or the fully lengthened generally.
So I think my argument in just bringing up these people was that I think maybe the best case scenario is just lengthen for your body and for what works for you. Yeah. So like however much stretch you can do for what works for you, your joints, your flexibility, the exercise that you're doing at the time, all of these things. And then also obviously probably just how often and how frequent you're going to be hitting that muscle group, because if you're going to be doing longer lengths, it may probably actually induce more muscle damage, take longer time to recover. So maybe you don't want to do leg day within another 2 days, or I don't know, after tomorrow. Maybe you can wait like another day. Right. So
that's huge. I think a lot of people don't even think about that.
Right.
Because if you did a leg day that's all leg extensions, hip thrusts, and leg curls, you didn't get any stretch, and you'll be able to do that 48 hours later. I mean, assuming the volume's lowish, you know what I mean? But if you did the same amount of volume and did RDLs, split squats, and like a high step up, it's all stretch stuff, you know what I mean? Like it's going to be massively different to recover from.
Yeah. I don't even do glute stuff like that. That shit destroys me. I guess Eric just has just some crazy flexibility, and I think the only thing one of the things I would like people to take home from this podcast is if they seem to have issues getting there, I think it makes a lot of sense, because Eric's been doing it for so many years that he's built up this crazy flexibility and being able to do so. But it doesn't mean that you should be able to do that exact same thing. Like you shouldn't be able to look just like that. You have your own kind of I guess look to how that stretch position would work for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So all right, I want to jump to these questions real quick. Allie says, why won't you modify your damn Jeep?
You haven't seen her Jeep, right? Like that bright pink Jeep on the, I don't know what size wheels she's got.
Of course she has a bright pink Jeep. That's funny. Do you have a Jeep?
I do have a Jeep, yeah.
What kind of Jeep do you have?
Basically same she has, like a Wrangler.
Okay, but it's not bright pink.
No.
It's a mistake.
I
know. Johnny asks, is there any time that you feel like you failed?
Any time that I feel like I failed? I mean, sure, a million times. Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, I think I probably fail every day. Like there's something I could do better every day, you know? Trying to think of like a recent memory where it was like an epic failure. I don't know. I mean, nothing comes to mind, but I do feel like I think there's a healthy balance, and all high performers have it. Like Tim Grover talks about it in Relentless, where he talks about Kobe and Michael Jordan. Everyone would like celebrate for an hour and they'd be like, all right, done, next. What's next? You know what I mean? A lot of high performers that I associate with or work with, they have that. But I think there's a healthy balance of where that can get to be, you know, too much. And then you're always kind of just like, you're never satisfied. You know, you're eternally dissatisfied, which seems to be like a mantra of a lot of high performing people. So you want to be able to somehow find that balance of like, okay, I can celebrate my wins and be happy and be satisfied. Like maybe it's never as good as you want it to be. So there's always that drive to keep going and getting better. So I think I have a healthy balance with that, where I could say, okay, I failed every day. There's something that I did that could have been better, but I don't let it send me into like a dark downward spiral or depression or something. Whereas I would have in my 20s and early 30s, I would have done that for sure. Now I'm able to bounce back a lot faster.
I resonate very highly with that. For me, actually, personally, I think this is one place where it's easy and I'm willing to admit right now that it's been really hard for me to find that balance between like being really having gratitude for my success versus like wanting more. I just feel like I'm someone that always wants more, which is honestly just such a huge problem.
Right.
I do practice that gratitude every day, and it's very helpful, but I'm not sure what it is, if it's this like this only child Asian cultured drive in me that continues to want more. But I find even in terms of like, say, even having a relationship, for example, I feel like there's a point where I think a lot of men, especially these days, can relate to this, and it's kind of like a vulnerable spot to talk about, I think. But even just like knowing that like the partner that you are with is the one that you want to be with, and then focusing all that on that person and your relationship with her or whoever it is, and then knowing that that's going to be it for like what you want to build on, at least for like the rest of time and for the rest of life. And I think that's a very, very fucking amazing and valuable thing to have.
Right.
I don't think there's anything more valuable, honestly, than having a beautiful family and then growing with it. But I think especially these days and with social media and all these things, it's hard for a lot of us.
Yeah.
You know, and I hate to bring a touchy subject, but just like even thinking like I was kind of surprised to hear about, did you hear about Andrew Huberman's little fiasco?
No.
Do you know Andrew Huberman?
Yeah.
Dr. Andrew Huberman?
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously like media is media. I don't ever really know how true anything really is, but I guess there was something that came out that he actually had 6 girlfriends. Oh. That he was like consistently traveling to and keeping a secret. So like I guess none of them really knew.
Because I knew his one girlfriend years ago. I don't know how, I haven't talked to her in a while, so I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah. Huh. So yeah, I guess kind of crazy thing. It is super surprising because I always looked up to him as like this professional that I thought had a wife, and seemingly was just, even though he had a kind of an interesting childhood like I did, you know, skateboarded and got hella tatted up and everything. And I guess I'm not sure what happened with his family, but there was something that he had to overcome as a child. Okay. But then he decided he wanted to go into education, be a professor. That was exactly what I wanted to do too, because my dad was a professor. So I actually was going to UCSD to get my master's in biomechanical engineering, and then a week before I dropped out to just do content, do all this. Yeah. But then I found out about like the 6 girlfriends. I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
And I guess it makes sense that like in a man that's like always consistently striving for more, and one that's always consistently working on himself to like, I guess maybe in his mind, reach as close to the point of perfection as an independent person that he can. Yeah. I mean, you know, when you like go back into like our animalistic instincts, right? Finding as many, I guess, mates to create families with is just kind of part of the whole, like reaching the highest part of hierarchy and I don't know, just going along with that entire big ass dopamine rush. So I think mentally pulling back from that and then realizing like figuring out who is the person I say that you really want to be with for life, and that you really find that connection, that intimacy, that sustainable relationship long term, I think is like, at least for me and a lot of people, I find has been a hard thing, and has been something that I've realized has been really important that I've been working on in the last couple of years. Yeah. So,
I mean, it's definitely difficult and challenging. And I mean, you seem to be kind of really maybe, for lack of a better term, married to the idea that having that one person forever is like maybe some sort of ideal. But like, I've seen a lot of people that were great together and then they just grew apart. And they were cool with it. They were like, "Hey, we just grew up," and they're not together anymore. I don't know. You know, life's crazy. You know, like things happen, things change. Like, I don't know. Are you meant to be with one person forever? I don't know. I know a lot of good people who it seemed like perfect, and then they're not together anymore, but they're happy now. I think, like, you know what? As a younger man, I judged people a lot more than I do now. And now I have no judgment. It's just like, hey man, I get it. Like I've been alive almost 50 years. I know everyone goes through some shit. Like whatever, man, you know?
Shit just happens.
Yeah.
Situations happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even like, it's the craziest thing. It's like, I feel like in situations like this, like you just feel like all these people go into these things and these things happen because of their intentions, but that's not always true.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the universe hands you things that you just don't fucking expect.
Right.
And some crazy things that you don't expect. In fact, literally all the time. Like, I think that's something that I've had to deal with a lot in the last 5 years is acceptance. Like, not really a big like woo guy or angel numbers guy, but I did look at angel numbers and I saw like 999 was like acceptance, and I was just like, honestly, like if there was an angel number for me, it would be this one, because out of all the experiences I had, like all my friends passing away, and then this is kind of like, this might be a little bit a lot, because you did say that I was a little bit married, or I seemed a little married to this idea of having one person. I actually had a 4-year open relationship, and that was the last relationship I was part of. Because I was just like you, I didn't really understand like what, like there's so many issues and so many relationships. I find myself, I find myself like not really understanding like where this like greatest fulfillment will be. Like, is it gonna lie in being with one person, or is it not? I guess I was just like curious. So
it's so hard to say, right?
Yeah,
I think everyone's an individual. It's funny, this always brings me back to, I remember one time hearing Adam Duritz, the lead singer, I think that's his name, the lead singer of Counting Crows, on Howard Stern, and Howard's like, you're in a relationship every 6 months, and it's like the most beautiful thing, and you think you're getting married, and then you're with someone else. And I remember him explaining, he's like, yeah, I just love people, and I love getting to know people, and I love, that 6-month honeymoon phase, and it's beautiful. And then, we move on. And he's like, yeah, but you're never, like, it's never a harsh breakup. You guys remain best friends. He's like, yeah, I just think it's so beautiful. And I was like, well, that's an interesting perspective. That's one way to look at it,
Yeah. No,
if that makes you happy, you're not hurting people, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
I have had, like, I've only had 2 really big official relationships, but if I'm really being open and transparent on this podcast, like, when you date and something's like not really official, like I'm sure that we've all explored and like met a lot of people where we've, met connections with, and maybe we didn't go too deep into a relationship and stuff, but like something was still there.
Yeah.
And I think for almost all of them, I've had like a really great ending, which is like a really big blessing for me to have.
Yeah.
Because I think for every single one, I just feel gratitude.
Yeah.
There's not a single relationship I have, at least, where I'm just like, I can't, like, I hate that happened.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So maybe that was
some people don't have that.
That's what I'm saying. That's what's so great about that. And maybe that was the person that you needed to fill whatever void, or just to spend that time with at that time. Like, they gave you that, and you'll always have that. And it's like, I think that's such a great kind of experience and perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess now it's just like, since I've been in that open relationship container, and it was just so fucking complicated and so crazy.
Yeah.
It was just so crazy that I find myself feeling like a lot greater level of determination in at least integrating like one strong family into my life, even if it ends in the future. Like, I don't expect anything to last.
Right.
Like, deaths happen.
Yeah.
People change.
Yeah.
But I think it's like a nice place for me to actually shoot for, in terms of just like, I think just continuing the legacy and having a family.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyways, we're about out of time, but I have one question that I ask everybody at the end of every podcast. So if you were to die tomorrow, but you had one message you could send to the entire world, what would that message be?
Oh, wow. Nice, easy question. Let's see. I would say just, sticking with the theme of what we talked about before, is that every day you're basically writing your eulogy, and like, determining who's going to be at your funeral, and what's it going to be like, what are people going to say, I think through every interaction you have. So like, when you unconsciously decide like, oh, I'm going to be all miserable today because something work-wise didn't go that way, like, just remember all the people you're going to encounter, the people who have it worse than you, the people's day you could brighten up, and, the way you can make people feel. I think that is just, just consider that. Like, it sounds morbid, but a lot of days I'll think about my funeral and be like, okay, me being like this right now, being in a douche mood is not cool. Like, people aren't going to remember me for that. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Get over your shit, get out of your own head, and realize it's not all about you, and just try to focus on other people. And I would say something like that.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, bro.
Yeah.
Sick. Where can everybody find you?
J.fit. Super easy. All my stuff will be right there.
Awesome.
Yeah. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, dude. That was
Pleasure.
dope.
It was great.
Everybody, if you would like to support the podcast, you can do so by rating us a 5-star on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you find a podcast, and subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking the bell button, because that's what gets us amazing guests like Jay today. So I love you guys. Thanks for staying tuned. Sorry I was a little tired today. But this was an awesome podcast. So peace.
Cool.
Yeah. I love that button.